Happy Saturday. Welcome to our second version of our anthology reading, our celebration for our new, for Great Weather for Media's new anthology, Arriving at a Shoreline. Yay! Here with us today, we have some wonderful, fabulous contributors who will be reading their work, sharing their work with us today. I will be your host, Lyndsey Ellis, and I'm so happy to have my co-editors with me, Jane Ormerod, Mary Schlechter, and David Lawton. And we also have the wonderful Peter Durrell. So with that said, I will go ahead. We won't hold you. We want to actually get started. So we're going to start our fabulous lineup, which begins with Aaron Bruener. So Aaron is an essayist and fiction writer from Richmond, Virginia. He earned his MFA from University of Iowa's nonfiction writing program. Welcome, Aaron.
Oh, thank you. So the piece that I published is called Mags the Magnificent, and it turns out to be a little bit tricky to read live, but we're going to try, and sort of the idea is to follow along and then fall off, to sort of read it and see what catches you. Mags the Magnificent. Margaret hadn't gotten into clowning for the celebrity. If anything, her motivations were the opposite. The flexible, choose-your-own-adventure nature of the business reminded her of books she used to read, either linearly or abandoning paths all willy-nilly, as soon as she even started to lose interest in them. And when she was off for days and weeks at a time, they had told her directly that clowning didn't have a season. Clowning doesn't have a season, they said, even derisively, as though anyone but a clown and his wife ever cared whether clowning had a season. But her calendar cleared up for 6 weeks starting every January 22nd, which she suspected was due to some unfortunate historical connotations, white people prancing around in face paint. And so she took pains to remove anything even vaudevillian from her act, even going so far as to ensure that any pie thrown at her. This stipulation ultimately had a null effect on her clientele, since the only people who wanted to throw a pie at her. Her first major surprise was how low this number was. 4 times a year, 1 in every 20 or so appearances in the good times would have been a lot. And in her first years, before she had met many other clowns, first because she didn't know that there was even such a thing as a clown convention for her first 2 years, when she was truly independent, finding work through acquaintances and Google AdSense ads. The former was more successful, but the latter was how she met other clowns, the largest contingent of clown-related Googling. Second, because she didn't see the point of clown networking until a guy started booking her 12 times in total, but she only went to 3 of those for private shows, very private. He was the only one. And she found out through conversation that there was a community of clowns who had already blacklisted him. She thought there was something wrong with her, were dedicated enough to go to any lengths, had a lattice crust so that it wouldn't be confused for a cake if she accidentally walked on some of the bits that had fallen off. She could go about figuring out what else she wanted to do. But now, well, this, standing behind a curtain in front of, 1,000 people? She hadn't asked how many there were, and nobody had told her, all expecting to see Mags the Magnificent, the name it had taken almost a full year to come up with. The time investment well worth it. Her bookings more than doubled, and there was very little disappointment over the brevity of her Act's Magic segment after she rejected Magnificent, because even though people told her they liked it, Spot Clean Jeffries, legendary clown for whom she was this very night opening, had told her that with a name like that, she sure was going places. She felt people didn't really get it. To do her signature trick, a balloon animal creased and blown so that it looked like a smaller balloon rather than a traditional animal, in addition to half an hour of other material, which she had done at least 1,000 times, several hundred times successfully, and more hundreds in practice before she went public with it already. In fact, people were only there because she had done it before. The one silver lining, purple lining as some clowns like to say, was that she wasn't as well known as Spot Clean, who expected to fill a crowd at the premiere of big new tricks. All of her practice hardly relieved her reticence, and somehow, not to feel bored, whatever you call it, she was making, of all things, a commitment to the bit. Spot Clean's memoir was called Commitment to the Bit, named after the trick, the name of which is presumably a nod to the cliche that first shot him to stardom in the 90s, in which she pulls a carrot out of his wig and an unnecessarily long tissue from his mouth, ties the tissue to either end of the carrot, puts the carrot horizontally in a pony's mouth. The act was revolutionary for including a petting zoo, which could really bring a sense of symmetry to a party, and lets kids hold the tissue while they ride the pony. There was some concern in the community that Spot Clean was out of ideas until 2 years later when he dropped a tiny balloon horse into a Dixie cup full of water, a move he called One Trick Pony. What she didn't expect when the curtain opened, having never been on a stage before, is that the audience was entirely populated by silhouettes.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. Great lines in there. My goodness, and the descriptive language is spot on. Appreciate it. Okay, so next we have Ria Dhingra. Ria is a sophomore at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and is studying both English, literature, and philosophy. She was the recipient of the Mackey Undergraduate Writers Award in 2021. Her writing appears in Bridge Literary Journal, Ezell Magazine, and was recognized by the Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald Museum. Ria is a lover of stories, car rides, Post-it notes, and trying to find beauty in the ordinary. Everyone welcome Ria.
Hi. Before I start, I just wanted to thank Lyndsey, Jane, Mary, David, and Peter for putting this together. This is my first time doing a reading like this, and also everyone else who's here. I loved reading all of your work. I'm just gonna read the poem. It's super short. That's in the anthology, and then an essay, a short prose thing that I'm working on. So my poem from the book is Call Me What I Am. Call me what I am, a walking fire hazard. Restless, still air settling before a tornado, thin ice patterned with filigree cracks containing the cold water. Call me what I am, strong, fragile, trying to curb the storm but not stop it. Photographing landscapes of ruin in the name of beauty. Call me what I am, restrained, unstable, easily ignited by firefly lights and soft music, captivated by conversations, curbing chaos, fighting fires, chasing storms, diving headfirst, alone into freezing water. Call me what I am, mature, adult, matching cadence to newscasters, low voices, deep inflections, pouring wine by the serving size and staying sober, volunteering to speak on the phone, training actively to listen, taking cold showers, alerting the storm patrol, learning to keep it all together. It's giving up, growing up, one in the same, mild and sunny, 62 degrees, pleasant then digestible, restraining the rainstorms, releasing uproar only when appropriate, passion then spilling out into texts and embeds, volatility now packaged and then easily profited off of. I call you to unravel me with delicate touch. The clementine peels I leave at your bedside table, gifting affection in the form of small actions. The details I cling to, the ones lost in the setting. That was my piece in the book. And then I'm currently working, this is unfinished, a prose essay that I wrote the day I turned 20, but it's 80% done. It's called Nude Scene, which is a fun title. The air today felt like Navy Pier, not like being there, but like the very pier itself. Unpredictable winds at underwhelming speeds, scented like churros, cigarettes, and sellable sin. Misty fog mimicking the aftershadow of fireworks over the lake, the hum of the atmosphere ringing in my ears, sounding like Disturbia by Rihanna and early 2000s Fall Out Boy. I like Navy Pier, adore it even, despite it being a tourist trap. For I'm 20 today and at the age where I'm now done liking things I believe I'm supposed to like, what others tell me to like. So last night I decided that I do not like the movie, the one that the critics lauded for its raw portrayal of the teenage experience. The one about the girl from San Francisco, with the actress so far removed from her teens, her story could never really be raw. Never like standing outside the funeral of your own youth and feeling like you were 7 again. At Navy Pier, eyes widening at fireworks and the limitless potential laid out in front of you. Today, I want to write a movie about a girl from the suburbs of Milwaukee, because Hollywood should care more about the kids from the Midwest. Kids divorced from reality, kids longing to get out, not those complaining about being in. The movie's about my best friend. And she's lovely and intelligent and possessing of all the qualities that make her just as deserving to be the lead of the sort of movies they make about the girls from San Francisco. She's also a woman of color with pink hair. Not that it should matter, but it does matter, doesn't it? It matters enough that if made, our movie would be an excellent candidate for award season, beating out all the other girls from San Francisco and Boston and Napa Valley. I've decided to like representation, not just because of politics, artistic diversity, or even because it's 2022, but because last night my roommate and I witnessed a woman who looked like me, like my best friend, stripped down to show nothing but herself on TV. It was not done in a way that was taking back the power or even empowering. It was not tasteless or humiliating, it was real. The woman on TV felt shame and guilt and pride and love and all the things brown women who look like us feel when it comes to our own nakedness, when it comes to our own bodies. Because for us, that sort of vulnerability is beyond dangerous. That nakedness, it's undoing careful stitches put in place by our mothers and grandmothers. It's allowing that blood to spill out. It's saying, here, look at me, I'm wounded. It's demanding, love me anyways. That's true nakedness. It's drunk text without a censor, pictures without a filter, speaking our mother tongues to our parents while on the phone in public elevators. It's my best friend from Milwaukee calling me at 3 a.m. and saying, I'm sorry I'm not as happy as I should be. That's real life. I'm 20 today and I've never been fully naked. The closest I came when I was alone, lost at Navy Pier. At age 7, I was shrieking with both unadulterated joy and fear as the fireworks first went off. Back then, I was still brave enough to like what vulnerability had to offer, even when the sensations were uncomfortable up close. My movie, our movie, will end with nakedness but not nudity, with the girl from Milwaukee standing in Navy Pier in broad daylight, witnessing the after image of the night before, the tourist trap of a city, herself, myself, ourselves, finally undressed. Thank you.
Woo, thank you, Ria. You sure this is your first time doing this? You sound like a natural. Thank you so much for that beautiful writing. So, Robert Anthony Gibbons, we have up next. He's a native of Floridian, came to New York City in 2007 in search of his muse, Langston Hughes, and found a vibrant contemporary poetry community at the Cornelia Street Cafe, the Green Pavilion, Nomads Choir, Brownstone Poets, Hydrogen Jukebox, and Saturn Series, among other venues. Widely published in literary magazines and anthologies, Robert's recent credits include Killen's Review of Arts and Letters, Killer Whale Journal, Tribes Magazine, Involuntary Magazine, Peer Green, Expound, and the Bronx Memoir Project, Volume 2, published by the Bronx Council of the Arts. He has received funding from the Puffin Foundation, United States Artists, and most recently, the New York Foundation for the Arts. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Jane and David and George and Thomas and everybody that exists in this space. Thank you so much. Thank you for the years of supporting my work. I appreciate, even before Great Weather for the Media, Uphook published me, so I appreciate it. I appreciate the longevity of our friendship and our relationship. So I want to just, before I read my poem, I want to make an acknowledgement. I acknowledge Okeechobee. I come from the land of Lake Okeechobee, the Everglades. So I want to acknowledge the Tequesta. I want to acknowledge the Appalachee. I want to acknowledge the Taino. I want to acknowledge the Arawak. I want to acknowledge the Pahokee. And I want to acknowledge the Seminole. I come from the sanctified church of my grandmother, like Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman, who lived for mission. Therefore, I have church beneath my teeth. I bring the abolitionist geographies of Zora Neale Hurston, James Weldon Johnson, Augusta Savage, who were famous Floridians. And I also bring the call of Frederick Douglass. So I want to acknowledge that. That's my acknowledgement today of the land and the people that exist. I lost a cousin yesterday, so I'm going to read a short little essay to my cousin, and then I'll read the poem, because I have to travel to visit, to go to her funeral. So this poem is entitled, I'm an evolved ancestral form in search of the light. As soon as I arrived west, I knew I would be infinite. I took the plane beyond the Appalachians, top gallant to the Rockies, to an elevation of 10,000 feet in search of the light, in search of my sight, and who would dictate Earth living in this dearth of dilapidation. I am a stranded archipelago. East, meeting the West, I make my ascension to climb, to rhyme up there. I had to catch up with my reading like I need to catch up with my breathing. I felt so nebulous, so supercumulus. Even the snow pellets felt like asteroids. It was the smell that brought me there, way up in the atmosphere. I wanted to collect the muses. I wanted to use them as heavenly bodies. I wanted to relieve the stodginess in this mist of the ungodly, way up there, under the spell of the atmosphere. And I'll read the poem that's in the book, lovely book. Thank you so much. Entitled Arriving at the Shoreline. My poem is entitled A Self-Taught Genius. It's in tribute to Thornton Dial, Sr., page 17, with an epigraph by Edward Young entitled Learning is Borrowed Knowledge. Genius is knowledge innate and quite our own. Birds gotta have somewhere to roost. No wonder Grandpa collected all those truck tires full of rainwater and lizards, pieces of hood from an old Chevrolet and old green awning, far to the back near his tool shed. Had not used it in years. Someone said it's dead back there. Or maybe it was just a yard show of lead pipes and broken down machines. Those dry bones of an old transmission gave him admonition to get up early every day. Birds gotta have somewhere to roost. His legs the color of papaya juice and spider skillets. His head hang beneath the lid of the car, or his mind far into his chemistry. He could take it all apart and put it back together, be it turbine or carbine or combine or mainline. It was the hum that I remember, the crankshaft, the smell and whiff of oil beneath his fingernails. He likes it to be dirty as much as he likes to get up early. Birds gotta have somewhere to roost. His post was handyman, but you can say a blend of chemist and artist, novice without education, just a rash of screws and nuts and bolts and chokes. And he told me to help so I would pump the grease, it would release energy. He wanted it done so he would be finicky. Birds gotta have somewhere to roost. He had to band-aid those wounds from the war. The tune of the engine gave him peace until he fixed it. There was no release. It is all day and into the night. His station had a pilot light. His supper is cold. He is still there. We already know. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Robert. And thank you for the land acknowledgements at the beginning too, very necessary. Okay, Kelli Stevens Kane is a poet, playwright, and oral historian. Her debut poetry collection, Hallelujah Science, came out from Spoyton Duyvil in 2020. Kane is a Cave Canem Fellow who has also studied at Vona, Hurston Wright, and Callaloo. She has read and performed nationally. Welcome, Kelli.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and to the editors for just so many years of support. And I can't even express it. I'll just jump in. I'm going to read from Hallelujah Science, which is almost 2 years old. So that's exciting. And what I just decided to do right now was my reading will be a mama sandwich. So I'm going to read a poem from this, a tiny poem. So the bun is tiny on both sides. This poem is going to sandwich my anthology poem. So I'll start here with I guess my mom is the shoreline today. When I was 5, I used to rise up out of myself and watch me from behind. I told my mama, and she stayed calm. I told my mama, and she let me double. Now, to arriving at the Shoreline. For those of you with your copies in hand who are read-along people, this poem is on page 149, and it is from a new project that's at the intersection of oral history and poetry. So it sounds like somebody talking to you, but it looks just like a poem. And it is called Horseback Ride, Mom, Early 1990s. It's in my mom's words. When I was in Mexico, I can't tell you where in Mexico. It might have been Cancun. I'd have to look at the chart to see. Anyway, I wanted to horseback ride because I'd never done it. And I forget how much it cost, but I didn't care because I had a credit card. And I was going to put it on the credit card. So I went and signed up for this, and we were supposed to meet at a certain time, and they wrote us out to where the horses were and helped you on them and told you how to deal with them and all that good stuff. So I'm on the saddle and my feet are in the holders, and I thought, oh, this is nice and easy. When the horse walks, it kind of sways you back and forth or up and down, you know. I'm going, oh, it's kind of nice. So we walk out to the ocean and they said, does anyone want to go in the water? Our horses swim in the ocean. And I said, oh, I shook my head, yes. And I put my hand up, yes, yes. He said, okay, well, this isn't the area, but we can ride real fast down at the other end where we take them in. And I said, okay. Well, the horse takes off, Kelly. The horse takes off. I bounce up off the seat and I grab with my legs, and don't I go sideways. And my body is sideways. One leg is on top of the saddle and the other leg is underneath the horse. And I started hopping. Oh my goodness. And he stopped the horse and I got back up on it. He said, I wasn't ready. And the horse just took off. He said, yes, that's exactly what they do. I should have said something. And I said, well, that's all right. So he said, we're going to walk the rest of the way there because those horses go fast as hell. So we walked down there and the horse just kept walking on into the water. It was like they were galloping, but they weren't touching anything. It was like they had 4 arms and they were just pulling the water back, and you're there. They didn't let us go out too far, but I mean, it was far enough that they didn't hit the ground, the sand, the feet. So I stayed on, and I'm telling you, I squeezed that horse tighter than anything so I wouldn't fall off. Oh, geez. Oh my gosh. The water was so blue, you could see your legs underneath the water. So we get back and I'm in one piece, and I'm so glad I didn't fall off the horse because I was afraid the horse was going to trample me. So we get back and I was so glad to be on the ground that I went out to the ocean in my jeans, took my boots off and left my top on and walked right into the water and just laid there. It was floating on the water and I didn't sink at all. And I never could float, but I still had my clothes on and they helped me float because I could never, even when I learned to swim, I couldn't float. I would sink. So I guess the clothes, you know, the water getting underneath the jeans, the big jeans back then, not the skinny ones. Sunset was coming on. It was beautiful. And I'm just laying there with all my clothes on. I was so glad to be, you know, in charge of myself. When I was 5, I used to rise up out of myself and watch me from behind. I told my mama and she stayed calm. I told my mama and she let me double. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for your, was it mama sandwich, mama bun? Appreciate it. I love that piece in the anthology, and I think you adding the pieces from Hallelujah Science really added a nice touch. Alison Lubar teaches high school English by day and yoga by night. They are a queer, non-binary femme of color whose life work, aside from wordsmithing, has evolved into bringing mindfulness practices and sometimes even poetry to young people. Philosophers Know Nothing About Love, their debut chapbook, was published in 2022 by 30 West Publishing House. Most recently, their work has been published or is forthcoming with Moonstone Press, Sinister Wisdom, and New York Quarterly. Alison.
Thank you so much. I'm just so honored to be in this anthology with all of you, to have another piece published by Great Weather for Media. I actually, one of my very first readings was with you in New York, and I'm just so happy to have you be like a little touchstone on my poetry journey. I'm going to read two pieces. I will start with the piece from the anthology, which is on 52 and 53, but I have it digitally, so it looks like I'm looking at you when I'm really looking at the poem. That's the real trick. So this piece is called Pancakes with Oji-san, and Oji-san is grandfather in Japanese. That's what I called my grandfather. It takes place in somewhere Pennsylvania, 1993. I slide down the tiny blue plastic desk chair and risk the static, shrinking into my seat as Mrs. Wilson announces pancake breakfast with grandparents. And I think first, no one looks like Oji. And I think second, I only have one person to bring. And that day I do. My blue-eyed, curly-haired Boma, ashes interred under Belgian sky in sun-warmed concrete, topping a hill of wild perennials, would have joined willingly in a raspberry velour jogging suit and mink coat. And I'm here with her worse half, wishing Oji whiter. I knew that as soon as they discovered I have no grandpa or poppy, the classroom flirt boys draw up the corners of their eyes with middle fingers. I am no longer mere brunette, summer darkened, but reborn as other. I could blend in until now. This family betrayal is not the first. I use my index finger and thumb to widen my eyes top to bottom and stick my tongue out at the same boys and almost receive a principal's office referral. 6 months later, no one eats mom's yakitori at the classroom cultural celebration either. Only 20 years after do I think of how Oji must have felt a familiar othering, a routine gauntlet of gazes. The other kids' third grade grandparents probably would have made the same stupid face and would have also not gotten in any trouble. That day, we sat in silence, mutilating pancakes with white plastic fork sides, since knives are dangerous. Each syrupy bite drenched in maple imposter reminds me that nothing is ever special and different in a good way. Thank you. My second piece is along the same like thematic lines, but a little bit more triumphant. So that's why I'm gonna end with this piece. It was published by Philadelphia Stories, which is a Philly lit mag, and was the runner-up for the Sandy Crimmins Prize. It's called You Can't Say Oriental, and that's the title and also the first line. So I'll read it all together. You can't say Oriental because it's offensive. My blue-eyed friend sneers, smiles at superiority in knowledge, fairness, and freckles. My mother says her hair is mousy. My mother is not a rug. She has used this word for 40 years, feels its reclaimed East Asian kinship. This word is hers. It is mine. She taught me to 1, find, establish, feel one's bearings, location, way, get the lie of the land as other, as not them, unbelong at the lunchbox cracked open. 4th grade culture day potluck leaves yakitori untouched. I throw it out of blue Tupperware into the bushes. Local wildlife doesn't discriminate and relay its evaporation with delight. They loved it. 2, adapt, accommodate, acclimatize, attune. I learned to accommodate questions until I'm 30. I acclimatize to exotic, attune to scrutiny. I do mind you asking. I do not exist to satiate curiosity. This unease others you, I sniff it in like sweet gasoline. I will respond with fire. Like her, I am crowned with midnight river hair so long it tucks into our jeans. We belong everywhere. 3, aim, steer, design, intend toward mysterious as a hand I hold to chest or a ship adrift. I outmaneuver and drop into conversations. My auntie, the camps, Godzilla, what's of my people? Use chopsticks for popcorn, cheese crackers, anything oily. Scoff at weight control advice. They'll help you eat slower unless you've always used them. She still keeps my pink plastic baby ones with birds, little finger loops for a toddler. 4, align, position, set. My mother as direction. I fix my sight where the sun rises eastward. She warms me face first. Thank you.
Wow, give it up for Alison. Thank you so much for being here with us. It was so powerful. Appreciate it. Okay, so I must say this next bio, I mean, my goodness. I mean, the bio had me. That's all I can say. Mary Mackey became a poet by running high fevers, tramping through tropical jungles, dodging machine gun fire, being caught in volcanic eruptions, swarmed by army ants, stalked by vampire bats, threatened by poisonous snakes, making catastrophic decisions about men, and reading. She is the author of 8 collections of poetry, including Sugar Zone, winner of the 2012 Penn Oakland Josephine Miles Award for Literary Excellence, and finalist for the Northern California Book Reviewers Award and the Jaguars That Prowl Our Dreams, New and Selected Poems 1974 to 2018, winner of a 2018 Cis Women's Spirituality Book Award, sponsored by the Department of Diversity and Inclusion, and the 2019 Eric Hoffer Award for Best Book published by a small press. She is also the author of 14 novels. Everybody welcome Mary Mackey.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Jane and David and Lyndsey and George for setting this up. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm going to read the poem from the wonderful anthology Arriving at a Shoreline. My poem here, page 40 for read-alongers. And this has a slight story to it. I wrote this before the pandemic. I had this weird, I don't know, bizarre moment where I was sitting in a cafe and I just saw everything empty out. And it was about 6 weeks before the pandemic hit. And it's really weird. And I don't usually have these things happen. So I think it's special in that way too. It's called Here, Not Here. Cafes full. 45-minute waits, hot soup, grilled shrimp, children running between the tables, now empty. West Village, the deli, the library, people swarming out of the 14th Street subway station, empty. Cars rusting, a sheet of white paper flapping like the wing of a wounded bird. Water in the subway tunnels, blind fish white as bones swimming in circles. At the solstice, a Stonehenge of tall buildings, blinding light, heat unbearable. Cactus in Washington Square Park, dust clouds marching toward Ellis Island. At night, a city so bright you can see it from space, lost in a darkness so thick it sticks in your lungs like the breath of ghosts. So that's, and I want to also, thank you. I want to also tell you about my new book, which is called Creativity. And it's not a how-to book. It's a book, what is creativity? Where does it lie? Where does creativity come from? How does creativity, turn you into a poet? And I just want to read a tiny piece of it. I believe I was turned into a poet because I have in my life, besides being swarmed by army ants, experienced 6 to 8 times extremely high fevers approaching 107 degrees. And each time that has happened, I have had this this beautiful kind of happy, joyous sort of vision of golden light. And it's done a lot to deal with fear of death and everything. I can see, probably it's a near-death experience. I'm not trying to start a religion and get Rolls Royces, but there's something going on here. And it's never been from the same thing anytime. And I think it's how I became a poet. And I just want to read you a little bit of it. And this is called Creativity, Where Poems Begin. And it's a mixture of prose where I try to explore exactly where is creativity located, how does it happen, and poems that fold onto it, because I say you can never describe a poem in prose. If you could have described it in prose, you wouldn't have had to write it as a poem. So this is called, this is chapter 2, and it's called Fever. There's something different about me, something profoundly physical yet not obvious. Put simply, in a way that doesn't begin to explain it, I run high fevers, very high, near-death experience fevers. This does not happen all the time. In fact, it happens rarely and is never caused twice by the same illness. Yet in the course of my life, on 7 or 8 occasions when I fell ill with a sore throat, flu, measles, food poisoning, pneumonia, or something else that would ordinarily only have sent me to bed with a box of tissues, my body temperature has suddenly climbed to 107 degrees Fahrenheit, perhaps on 1 or 2 occasions, even a bit higher. Brain damage and death occur if the body's temperature stays above 107.6 for an extended period of time, say 24 hours. And then I just sort of talk about what it feels like to go up there. And then I say, the first time I experienced one of these extremely high fevers, it almost killed me. I was 6 months old. The fever was not done with me. The next time I nearly died was just before my 3rd birthday. I remember the experience well. I lay on a green couch, a warm golden light, the kind you only see for a few moments at sunset, flooded the living room. My parents moved toward me slowly so that I could see their clothing billow out and collapse in an invisible wind. Bending over me, they lost their faces and floated toward the ceiling like huge birds. The Coke bottle on the coffee table multiplied into dozens of Coke bottles, which flew up and circled in a huge grassy aura over their heads. Light weaved around me and over the molding and splayed across the ceiling like spilled glue. Behind my parents' heads, the golden light turned into a veil composed of long, multicolored ribbons that danced in an invisible wind. The veil expanded, consuming the green couch, the blankets, the windows, my parents. Suddenly it parted, and I saw trees with red and gold leaves, impossible because it was the dead of winter, and little children holding out their hands and calling to me to come play with them. I couldn't have had much of a vocabulary at that age. Nevertheless, words streamed into my mind and came out of my mouth, combining and recombining into entirely new things. I believe this was the moment when I was given the gift of poetry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, for sharing your piece in the anthology and also the piece from your new book. Sorry you had to go through those experiences, but it looks like something beautiful did come out of it. So thank you. Okay, so Puma Perl is a widely published poet and writer, as well as a performer and producer. She is the author of 2 chapbooks and 3 full-length poetry collections, Knuckle Tattoos, Verbace Press, Retrograde, Great Weather for Media, and Birthdays Before and After, Beyond Baroque Books. She is the creator, curator, and producer of Puma Perl's Pandemonium, which launched at the Bowery Electric in 2012 and brought spoken word together with rock and roll. Her band, Puma Perl and Friends, has performed in venues all over the metropolitan area, and she's performed as a solo artist throughout the United States and in Europe. She's received 2 honorable mentions and 1 first place award from the New York Press Association in recognition of her journalism, and was the recipient of the 2016 ACRA Award in the category of writing. Everyone welcome Puma Perl.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone, Great Weather, and everybody who read today. It's really been a wonderful reading, and everybody that's listening. So the first poem is a recent poem called Apocalyptic Birthday Morning. Birthday mornings, I find myself at Cossack's with a muffin and a dog. We finish and walk down Clinton. Its eternal distinctive smell of old socks and crazy people body odor unchanged. There's the guy whose ripped pants hang below his shit-stained drawers. There's another guy sitting on his walker throwing dirty napkins at passers-by. And then the woman with a silver pixie haircut, torn yellow dress, barefoot in broken glass and still strangely beautiful. It's not dissimilar to my recent dreams of knives slashing, boats sinking, walls collapsing, silent screams, unleashed dogs. Except that I'm awake, or at least I think I am. Maybe the nightmares are caused by my bedtime reading habits, apocalyptic literature more prophecy than fiction. Water laced with drugs that cause docility, thunder cracking windows and dislodging teeth. People no longer aging, murdering for space on Earth. Every day, I walk through nightmares, dreaming memories of you. 3 dogs owned by a Chinese family attacked my dog, and now she's afraid of the park and barks at random Asian ladies, and I'm pretty sure someone's gonna call me racist, but I'm just telling you what happened. They say lanternflies kill trees. One of them sat on my car windshield staring at me, and another one flew into my window and we're told to stomp them to death. What else shall we stomp to death? I conjure up positive images, like the 3 guys changing a tire on a van, 2 crouching down, a third overseeing them, arms crossed, the green and yellow plastic covered kitchen chair sitting on the street waiting for him in case he needs a break from his duties. And the gorgeous girl in the elevator this morning, ass so big in plaid pants, there was barely room for all 4 of us. Her and me, the dog, and my own fat ass. I think of Scott Weinberg and the birthday poems he always wrote, and of Mackey, who had gone to see Blondie at the pier last week and Jesse at the Mercury Lounge. Another apocalyptic birthday has passed. Or did I imagine it as I struggle my way out of nightmares, dreams, and memories of you? And this is the one from the anthology, and it's called Don't Ask. It takes only a few seconds to crash a car, lose a friend, ignite a fire, spit out words that you'll regret forever. Just a few hours can kill a plant, wreck a marriage, run down a car battery. One bad moment can kill a night. In recovery meetings, they say, start your day again. That concept never worked for me. Time doesn't ask permission, and these viral months have propelled us into territories we never thought we'd see. I got old this year, said my friend, but we still have a little fun. I catch myself remembering the lasts, the Cafe Bohemia show, the good Thai food, the bad Broadway play, the hug. Will we be back on stage with music, art, and silliness? Will I return to Prague? Will I love another dog? Sometimes I'm sad. Sometimes I look forward to the nothingness. Thinking is a struggle. Unthinking is leaving the toaster on and placing the cooked salmon in the cabinet. I'm often close to finding one perfect moment and 2 breaths away from the ceiling falling down. Thank you.
Thank you, Puma. Beautiful poetry. Appreciate it. Hey, unfortunately, Peggy Robles Alvarado couldn't be with us today. She's feeling a little under the weather, so everybody can just hold her up in good energy. We'll move to Dian Sousa, who is a poet and activist. She was a recipient of a 2019 Luso American Fellowship to the Disquiet St. Books International Literary Program in Lisbon, Portugal. Her third book, The Marvels Recorded in My Private Closet, was published by a Big Yes Press in 2014. Her most recent collection is The Third Power, Poems from the Women's March San Luis Obispo, 2017-2020.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for publishing my poem in your beautiful journal. I really appreciate it. I'm going to read my poem from the journal, and I don't know about you guys, but growing up hearing Puff the Magic Dragon, it's like that's the saddest song in the world. So I'm going to read this poem about that. It's called Every Time the Artist Hears Puff the Magic Dragon, a diptych. Dragons live forever, but not so little boys. 1. Puff as a pre-Raphaelite Ophelia. Everything you paint looks sad. A kitten with its ball of yarn, a colony of ants, a suckerfish. Suckerfish? Yes. See the warble in the round of its lip? You have it sometimes too. Always when that dirge, Puff the Magic Dragon, rises through the oldies radio station like a custard laced with Oxycontin, like a fentanyl ice cream soda. I yell, don't, but you do. You turn up the radio, sing along, even though you know what happens to the boy. And then it happens, and you start to cry. You start to weep. Next comes the keening and a denunciation of nostalgia as the absolute perversion of time. Then time cracks open, spreads its spiral map across the kitchen floor, and you see how the great trick of it is hidden in this one everlasting, undying bitch of a song. You take out your portfolio of illustrated sorrows and start to explain. Puff the Magic Dragon is sung in every language. Probably even the Yanomami have heard it. The dragon is green. Green is the first gleeful understanding of green. And the boy's heart is temporarily clear, open to every visitor. The dragon is eternal, but the boy only gets to be a boy for maybe 9 years before he is indoctrinated into the capitalist youth and has to get a paper route. So the boy leaves the dragon, and the dragon suffers in the dramatic and dangerous way that monsters tend to suffer. Puff sinks to the bottom of his cave in the Sea of Honolulu, which must be somewhere near Hawaii or Tahiti, which doesn't really seem so bad for an abyss. But what do I know? You do know, however, because you are an artist. His fire will turn inward, a shudder, a bitter breath, a burning ash lodged in his throat. In the depths of the water, the fiery-eyed will sleep. But what happens when he wakes? Who will he be then? 2. Little Jackie Paper as an atelier populaire. Sometimes the boy's name is Little Jackie Paper, but then time stirs it, switches it, opens its elastic hand and gives you something different and terrible, but always connected. Today, the boy's name has changed. This boy doesn't have a paper route, doesn't ride a bike through a make-believe manicured picket fence neighborhood. This is the boy in today's newspaper, the boy in the photograph. He is 9, maybe he's only 6. He is tiny and slack in a fetid boat in the sickened belly of the Aegean. There are no billowing sails, only a rotten breath at the back of his neck. The boy has 1 dried fig and 20 questions about miracles the ache in his body cannot answer. So it puts him to sleep, because that is all it knows to do. And he is thirsted and hungered, and there are sharks, and there are brutal, angry men who are the children of brutal, angry men who were never children, or they were children for an hour, or a month, or 6 years, or 9. Too short a time for them to make a kite or to collect sealing wax, as if a king might send a letter to a poor boy, or to write a song that would coax enough magic, no, not magic, love, so that the children might live long enough to write a song that would coax enough love into the world, so that the boy in the boat, the boy at the edge of the sea, the boy in Florida, the boy in Cleveland, the boys in Columbine, the boys in Aurora, the boys in Newtown, the boys in Parkland, so that the boys, and God, yes, the girls, we have finally started talking about the girls, might live long enough to go home, to frolic, to grow up, to make a world in which every monster sheds its monster skin, while it can still be shed, can be disarmed by a song, while it can still be disarmed. Thank you.
Thank you for that visceral piece. I've always thought that about this song too, so it's
Yeah,
something to
hate
really
that
see
song.
this. My goodness. Okay, so we're on to our last reader for today. We have with us Eric Taveren, who grew up outside of Seattle, but frequently visited Coruscant, the Shire, and Tarvalon, hope I pronounced it right, and the like. He's generally lived in the world of fiction, but occasionally has been lured out by nonfiction and very rarely poetry. He's currently toiling through his MFA in creative writing and resides near Minneapolis with his wife and young son, one of which makes consistent writing rather difficult. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone at Great Weather for this. I recently started taking this writing thing seriously, and you guys are the first people to say yes. So that feels fantastic. And it's one thing reading everyone's works in here, but hearing you guys, I'm like blown away that I was included in this with all of you, because you guys are amazing. So my thing is way too long to fit in the time allotment. So I'm just going to start in the middle. If you guys want to read along, page 65. From memories.jobs, import citing job. I could totally be a ninja, like right now. Give me 5 minutes to stretch. There are any number of menial tasks that can make a job dismal, like pulling nails from every piece of siding taken off a house, or holding a new piece of siding so it can get cut, or holding a new piece of siding so it can get nailed, or holding a new piece of siding so trim can be measured on and around it. So, standing on top of a 6-foot ladder, one's mind can begin to wander. Like when I imagine myself on a diving board, briefly defying gravity, doing flips into the deep end below. Summers in North Dakota were half filled with memories of country kid-filled pools. Could I flip off a ladder onto the ground 6 feet below? No, I don't have a death wish. But now that I think of it, during the next work break, I walked to the middle of the yard and jumped up and down a few times, testing out how much hop I had left after almost a full day's work. Then I tried something I'd never done before, a non-diving board flip. I landed on my ass. Well, technically my heels hit first at probably a 45-degree angle or so, and then I fell backward. There was a jolt of pain, reverberations up my legs, which was to be expected, hitting the ground like that. But the end result, fail. So I got up, got some Mountain Dew, then went back to the ladder as we began to start up again. Put my right foot on the first step, then went to straighten my right leg to lift myself up. only it didn't straighten. I looked down at my foot, tried to raise myself up, and my leg didn't respond. Dad, I said, gesturing in my position on the ladder, I think I might have broke something. End siding job. Pretty good for a first try. Next time. As I rose from my squat, picking him up from his protesting limp heap and on the way to timeout, my right ankle gave me the smallest of warnings. That ripped Achilles from 15 years ago didn't want to be forgotten. I wish I could tell him about my aches and pains and how not letting him climb on top of furniture and architectural features was in his best interest. Looking back at myself, I think even if he understood, it wouldn't make a difference. I've been warned about stuff like that. I grew up with my stepfather, a person who's had many back surgeries, shoulder surgeries, cortisone shots, and a ton of things I'm forgetting. My biological father lost his arm, had his own back surgeries, knee surgeries, and his fair share of cortisone shots. I had plenty of verbal warnings and visual examples that you'd think would lend themselves to better decision-making when it came to issues of bodily harm. You'd think. Google tells me it's called the adolescent perception of invincibility, and that kids through young adults experience it and basically do stupid stuff, as they either think they're immune to the consequences or that they have no concept of what the consequences will be. To an extent, I get it. My stepdad's back surgery started before I even knew him. My biological dad lost his arm when I was 7. I'd seen the consequences, and yet I still leapt off 12-foot-high jungle gyms. And for me, these activities didn't end after young adulthood. Lying in bed, taking a breather, my wife asked me what part of me is currently hurting. I say my knee. We started talking about the motivation for doing all the stupid stuff I did when I was younger. And eventually she asked if I could potentially consider some of my injuries self-harm, actions done trying to appease social expectations. Call defensiveness. Call folded arms. She has no idea what she's talking about. As if on cue, Wesley runs into the room and intentionally runs into her and then fall backward on the mattress. What if he missed the mattress? From memories.injuries, import all. Trophies. Sublist broken bones, expand. Toe, thumb, heel, other toe. Sublist sprains, expand. Wrist times 2, MCL, ankle times 3, shoulder. Sublist stitches, expand. Forehead, head, corner of eye times 2. Sublist torn muscles and tendons, expand. Achilles, abdominals, peroneal, terminal extensor. Injuries.MRI times 4. Injuries.popped rib. Injuries.ruptured blood vessel. Injuries.temporary blindness. Injuries.ultrasounds times 2. Injuries.unresolved mysterious chest pain. Injuries.x-rays times 27. Some of these things came from legit accidents or illness, like the torn abdominals. That came from coughing violently when I had a cold. Or the blood vessel. One of my nose ruptured during winter because of how dry everything was, and I had to get it cauterized. Others had some gray area. There were sports-related injuries. Call denial. Totally the other dude's fault. Work-related injuries. Call excuses. Well, he was only lifting 5 at a time. We needed to go faster. And random goofing off injuries. Call logic. I'm in control of everything. Nah, all those things are just part of being a kid, right? Kids play sports. Kids goof off. All things being equal, this could have happened to anyone. Like the ripped tendon in wrestling, the sport where I only saw 2 girls participate across 6 years. Or the popped rib from lifting too much lumber at a time. A job I don't recall ever seeing a woman on site at. Or the stitches from various cuts and gashes my brothers and I would pretend to be various comic and movie heroes. Heroes that were all dudes. Call logic. Not my fault, that's just how things were. Call doubt. Something is up with that logic command. It seems to be less convincing every time I use it. But I'm a smart dude, right? Surely my actions were all of my own free will and not the result of any societal pressures or norms or, wow, there are a lot of terms to describe this thing I was actively trying to distance myself from. Weird. But I'm aware of things. I can distance myself from that. And at this point, you're thinking, whoa, dude, you best check yourself, bro. So at my suggesting that verbiage, you then think, whoa, dude, you best check yourself, bro. So at my suggesting that verbiage, you then think, whoa, dude, you best check yourself, bro. Though am I suggesting that verbiage, you then think, error, endless loop detected. Whoa, dude, you best check yourself, bro. Okay, so maybe the damage is done, literally and metaphorically. As aware as I am now, I know that as a kid, I didn't know any better. Hell, as an undergrad, I didn't know any better. And at this moment, I think I know better. I think I make more conscious choices and identify when my social programming is causing me to respond a certain way. Like when I'm picking out clothes at the store for my kid, and there's a pink Wonder Woman shirt and a blue Captain America one. I want to pick the blue one, but I recognize now where that want comes from. So in this closet, there's a pink Wonder Woman shirt and no blue Captain America one. I watch shows where they interview kids, and hot damn are they socially aware. I think about what I'm passing on to my kid, trying to direct his media intake to the images and beliefs I adhere to. Undoubtedly, he'll be more socially aware than I am, and probably ever will be. Of course, I use that term as a giant umbrella. It's more of a cheat, as I'm probably unable to list all the different ways I'll expect he'll empower the underprivileged, enforce decency whenever he can, etc. As I inch closer and closer to sending him off into the world, I see him making mistakes, succeeding, being his own person. This little programmed blonde rapscallion will adapt and evolve. And as much as I try to warn him, will probably end up as an adult with knee aches when he gets up in the morning, wanting to buy blue Captain America shirts. All I can do is cross my fingers and hope that what little code I put in him was the code he needed to be better than me. Next count. Days Wesley. He'll be one hell of a dude. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. And thank you for deciding to send this to Great Weather. We loved it, the piece. And I love the way it's written or it's put on the page. It's amazing. So that's it, you guys. Thank you guys for reading, everybody. We really appreciate it. I see you just got up. Thank you for coming.